Hello again, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I am here today to talk about existential detractors. My term, I came up with it for people who define themselves by that which they are against, do not believe, and do not support. These people will usually have arguments and thoughts that can be very telling of the fact that they do not wish or have no actual intention to improve anything. Not 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 ideas, not situations, not processes, nothing. The idea is to keep them the same or make them worse. I call them existential detractors because since the beginning of history, they have been around. I thought about this topic because I've recently become aware that nobody ever did anything great without having to do it against a lot of other people's wishes. And the thing that most impacted me was the realization that most of these people, the detractors, were actually people that would be helped the most, like against their greatest efforts, from people who saved companies to those who saved families to those few individuals that have saved entire nations from making terrible mistakes and being destroyed, to those who have invented things or discovered new ways to combat crime or fires or legal loopholes or spies, to those who have tamed beasts and learned about them, to those who have shared stories that have shaped culture for centuries. They have all apparently done so against the best efforts of all those who should have been their allies, and that's what I want to talk about. See, countless people have historically reaped the benefits of the arduous suffering and effort of those they tried to destroy or at least stop. It's a particularity that keeps repeating itself since there was such a thing as human society. It is most certainly happening right now all over the world, and I think you have noticed it. Now, as I talk about this subject, I will try not to speak I'll try not to name specific examples, not even historic ones. It's a shame, but not even history is now free of polarization, and that's what I want to avoid. I don't want to polarize you. I just hope that you will listen and regard this what I'm about to tell you from whatever perspective is palatable to you. That the lack of knowledge over which side I stand on whatever issue matters to you the most will enable you to consider things with a clean conscience and thus reasonably. That's all I want, because it is really a non-polarizing issue, but it can be polarized if I name factual examples. That's my concern. So I'm going to share some considerations about people who seek to combat and destroy those who are fighting for their benefit and that of others, e.a. the world. The whys, the hows, never the whos. You will know the whos. Maybe you are the whos. That's kind of the final message, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here. So, first, there's ego. Ego is the first and most obvious of reasons for an existential detractor. Well, reasons, motivation. Let's call it motivation. It's one of the main motivations for an existential detractor. You see, most every individual in this world, I believe, has a fragile ego. It's just that sometimes very hard to tell that they do have a fragile ego because it's only fragile in a very specific way. But people that are have a really hard skin unless you hit them right there, and then they just crumble. We rarely identify their weakness. We all suffer in ourselves. We all suffer from main character syndrome for various reasons and refuse to admit that we are not the protagonist we think we are. Not just in how we are seen and regarded by others, but specifically in comparison to how we see ourselves. The surest way to force someone to confront the fact they have not stuck to their principles, stayed honest and true in their behavior and goals, is to be the hero of a situation they should have been a hero in. Not being the one that solves a big problem can be an emotionally charged experience that awakens in a person deep-rooted feelings of anxiety that are related to how disappointed they are in themselves. This manifests itself in a denial of the solution, pointing out issues using constructive language and at the same time not ever having a suggestion that can be seen as a solution or helpful. Because being the hero at that juncture can only happen if you are not the hero. If the problem is unsolvable or success impossible to achieve, then they can still be a hero. It's impossible. Usually, these people are at your level, so you are best left ignoring them. There is no use trying to convince them that what you're doing is for their own good, to save the company, for instance, or solve a crime that's got the entire team on its death throes. Argue and fight and convince those who matter, which is what you were ready to do since the start. If they are the ones you have to convince in order to advance, go around and over them. If you can't, go somewhere else. Unfortunately, any consequences they might suffer by not helping you, allowing you to succeed, are trumped by their fear of facing themselves, the fact that they are no hero. Speaking of fear, fear normally, well, it's just if what you're doing is important or impactful enough to merit weirdly stalwart detractors, then you have to be a threat to some established way of operation. That's like the most basic thing. Even if it's law, politics, education, or otherwise, there's some kind of process that is being challenged. People who have careers intrinsically connected to these processes or state of things will attack in a passive-aggressive, dismissive way. They will ridicule, patronize, minimize. You and your new ways are foolish. Any who even consider it shouldn't even get a place at whatever table you are trying to revamp and revolutionize. Almost no one who opposes a new way to do something and at the same time avoids debate is actually considering whether there is any improvement. They recognize a change that puts their gains at risk, and that's all they need to know. Do not seek their approval. Do not seek their appreciation or validation. Provide results and ask for debate, which will never be corresponded, which will never be agreed. People will not be as negatively affected. Jeez, sorry. Just people who will not be as negatively affected will eventually notice and accept it. And I mean this, higher ranking people. They will notice you and they will just let your change happen. Because those people actually want to improve their situation. An example that doesn't have to be super factual is in your workplace, you're trying to change the way something is done, and your immediate superior doesn't like you because the way it's done is the way he knows how to do it, but then the one above is going to notice that this actually improves things, and then he will let it go through, So, then we have hate as a primary motivation. Speaking frankly, some people just hate themselves and can't deal with that fact until they can just, they hate themselves, they don't understand why, so they need to understand why. They need to justify it to themselves that they hate themselves. They can decide on any number of strategies, none of them good for them or anyone else. But one possible strategy is to use what power and influence they have, socially speaking, or in the job place, to destroy what and who they can. At this point, it doesn't really matter who you are or what you're trying to do. The point is for them to feel miserable about life and themselves, and nothing's more effective than to crush an attempt to improve the world and the lives of many. You will not convince them. You will not turn them around. You will see from them destructive and mean-spirited arguments and attitudes. Possibly, you can befriend them and halfway cure them enough to let you pass through a crack in their hardened lava-hot skin, but it is very unlikely. You will have to do things against their will, either by going around them or going somewhere else. Then there's what I consider to be the best motivation, and that's basically their you. It is important to realize, that sometimes they're simply just as hardworking and dedicated as you are. They have the same goal, but they are convinced their method or plan is the one that will work. And they believe as strongly as you do. They will debate, they will argue, they will provide results. This is straight up competition, and there's only one way to approach it: work harder and prove yourself. Rarely will there be hard feelings between you and them, or at least there shouldn't be. But let's take this and go through the overabundance of experience in the random and indifferent as a motivation. A whole sentence. I couldn't come up with one word. It's just that, I think some people have come to believe from watching countless situations unfold that it doesn't really matter what is done. There are a million different things that can work, and they are always just luck, no matter what people claim. Like, anyone could have made that movie, anyone could have been a protagonist in that situation, Anyone could have done it. Yeah. For the sake of being in the position of the lucky bastard who gets to claim it, the claim that it was all skill and genius, they will fight for their method and plan, not because they believe in it. This can be the most annoying situation of all of them, because, there's no real direct way to deal with it. I mean, not to mention that it's not the least bit, it's not less dangerous. Many people have brought major ruination and pain upon other people and groups by thinking that anything will work and that it's all really just a fight for credit. It's the most dangerous of sentiments, but one that, I believe, should be met in the same way as the one beforehand. There is nothing to gain by treating them according to what they're actually doing, by being direct. They will never admit it. No meaning in telling others that they don't really believe their plan method is really the only thing that will work, or even that they will actually know yours will. They will deny it. Treat them as fair and honest competitors. Work harder and prove yourself. If you have any advantage, is that they have lost before and they are willing to lose again. They don't believe like you believe, and their lack of passion will be their undoing, if you allow yours to give you your wings. So those are, in general, I think, all the major motivations behind existential detractors. People who will try to stop you from changing their very lives sometimes, their very situation, as if you were really trying to hurt them. So I just wanted to leave a few final thoughts before I cut this thing off. Short? It's not short, so off. Keep in mind that detractors are not always people trying to keep things as they are, but almost as often, they're people trying to change things so that it benefits them more, regardless of the damages and harm it will bring to others. It's all the same. Progress and change can be the product of detractors just as easily as an attempt to keep things the same. Can. What matters is the intent, the goal, and whatever it is good and of benefit to others. Did I say whatever? I meant whether. What matters is the intent, the goal, whether it is good and of benefit to others or not. Existential detractors will never have this as a motivation. At the end of the day, you might be beset by any number of people like this. However, what I would like to stress is that you can definitely be one. Just another cog in the maniacal machines of history that try to stop great men and women from improving the world, from improving your very life. Consciously or not, you might be contributing to the evil in our society. And if so, I really believe your life will be so much better if you just listen to them. Not falling into any of these categories is basically getting out of your own way. When I say categories, I mean all these different kinds of motivations. Not being a slave to them means getting out of your own way. When you do that, by extension, you get out of their way. And then you can even go further. You can actually help things. And that, my friend, is halfway to becoming the individual this world needs you to be, that we all need you to be. And that includes being happy. If you get to that point, think back to all of these types of resistance you will encounter from others. I know that as you're listening, as you have been listening, and you've been thinking about what I've been said, hopefully, you were thinking, well, that's useless advice. Not only is the tag vague because of my commitment to not using factual examples, but more importantly, it doesn't guarantee success. In all fairness, it is easy to imagine that one of these people, one of these existential detractors, can actually stop you, like forever and for good. They can actually have enough power and influence where they stop you and you can't go anywhere else and you just cannot move forward with your idea and improve the world. And the world is just lacking because of that. You know, it's easy to say things like go around them and go somewhere else. That's all true. That is absolutely true. I cannot guarantee your success. Anybody who advises you is just trying to help. They can't guarantee your success. Only you can do that. That's the harshness of reality. But at the same time, it is the one thing that can really empower anyone. Is the realization that, yeah, nothing I say and nothing I do can guarantee your success. Only you can do that. And I, for myself, wish you the best of luck, because I know you can do a lot for this world. And hell, I hope I can as well. See you on the next video, where I will talk about something else that matters to me. Hopefully I'll be in better health. Bye.